Since the turn of the century, technology has rapidly improved. What will the next 30 years look like? Will the future transform our lives for the better? In this video, I will highlight 5 pivotal events set to alter the course of America by the year 2050. From the boomers' retirement to the takeover of automation, this video unveils upcoming changes destined to reshape America 30 years from now. Do you remember yourself 20 years ago? The world around you was very different from now, wasn't it? No wonder. The 21st century is the age of rapid technological progress, and we are advancing at a mind-blowing rate. By 2050, our planet will be a vastly different place, where we explore the fascinating world of the future and technologies. Tomorrow's futuristic cities are refashioning, giving birth to newer things we have never heard of.
Back now with our NBC News investigation. A major vote in California this week could allow more driverless cars on the road in San Francisco.
No hands on the wheel, no hands at all.
Okay, I just requested our ride and it's 3 minutes away.
More than 2,000 self-driving cars are on the road in California.
Several future cities are already under development, from high-tech towns to sci-fi kind of woods. So, what do you think our world will look like by 2025? In the year 2050, America may buzz with self-driving cars, assistants ordering your coffee, and scheduling your telemeeting for work, and video chatting your grandmother celebrating her 90th birthday. But in other parts of the country, cities are retrofitting infrastructure to handle harsh droughts and coastal flooding protests, calling for equality as America copes with becoming a majority non-white nation. And for the first time, massive wind and solar farms stretch across the heartland to power homes. How did we get to this futuristic and at times unfamiliar version of America? Well, between now and 2050. Our nation will undergo an incredible transformation in technology, energy, demographics, climate, economics, and culture. These monumental shifts will change the fabric of America as we know it. The aging of the baby boomer generation refers to the large cohort of Americans born between 1946 and 1960 during the post-World War II economic boom. In 2050, the youngest baby boomer will be 86 years old. As this segment of the population enters their senior years, the impact on society will be enormous. America will need expanded senior services, healthcare, and facilities. And there will also be effects on Social Security and Medicare as a wave of people qualifies. For these programs, the changing needs of baby boomers will require shifts in housing, transportation, and infrastructure to accommodate this aging population.
Baby boomers I define as that 20-year segment, people born 1945, 1965, including the Twin Peaks. And just think of that big cohort working its way through society. In reality, what's happening in the modern world is the family is changing character and becoming more significant. The family is crucial. The ties, particularly financial ties of dependence, which now last for so long, from children to their parents, mean that the kids stay living near where their parents are. One of the often implicit features of the bank of mom and dad is, yes, we'll fund you, of course, we'll help out with your deposit.
In the next decades, there will be more people living in the United States based on population predictions from the U.S. Census. It is approximated there will be almost 400 million Americans by 2050. That is an incredible increase in a relatively short period. Today, there are just about 339 million Americans, and this means that the population will increase anywhere from about 1% per year. The increase in Americans will primarily be due to Americans living longer and migration from other countries. It means two things. The first is that the average age of Americans is likely to increase by 2050. Over 20% of all Americans will likely be over the age of 65. The second thing is that many of these newer Americans will be far more diverse than the current population. Most migration is likely to continue from places such as Asia, Africa, and Central America. The U.S. will become a country without any majority race, but it is a growth, and migration would not be felt equally across all states. Some states will grow much faster by 2050. Likely, California will still be the most populous state with over 40 million people. But Texas will be closing in on it with over 54 million people, followed by Florida with over 27 million and New York with just over 23 million. Florida, Utah, North Dakota, and Colorado are likely to round out the top 10 states by 2050, but not all states will grow. Michigan and others are likely to shrink in population, that is, unless something global pushes to move north. Now here is the exciting part, the 5 possible occurrences that will transform America. 1. Shifting racial demographics. The makeup of America's population will continue to diversify by 2050. According to projections, whites will become a minority, dropping below 50% of the populace, and Hispanics will drive much of this change, growing from about 18% of the population today to over 24% by 2050. The Black and Asian population will also increase as a share of the U.S., and as America becomes the majority non-white, there will likely be increased cultural blending, and political shifts in the youth populations in particular will represent the growing diversity. Many regions will see racial and ethnic transformation shaping local communities. These are just a few of the significant transitions shaping America's trajectory towards 2050, from an automation to climate change, energy systems to racial diversity.
Well, renewable energy and energy efficiency just make common sense. The United States sends billions of dollars overseas every year to buy oil, natural gas, and other fuel sources.
Energy efficiency and renewable energy can create hundreds of thousands of jobs around the United States and also protect our planet.
The country will navigate enormous shifts in the coming decades. While the details are hard to predict, the nation will undergo fundamental changes affecting every facet of society. The 2050 version of America will hardly resemble today. 2. Renewable energy. The years leading up to 2050 will also likely see a significant shift in America's energy sources. Renewables like solar, wind, geothermal, and hydropower will become increasingly cost-competitive emissions, and cutting policies and carbon taxes may accelerate this green transition by 2050. Some experts predict over half of U.S. electricity generation could come from renewable versus those under 20. Today, this would fundamentally reshape America's energy economy, altering jobs, infrastructure, and more. And new technologies like advanced batteries, smart grids, and electric vehicles will reinforce this change. 3. Climate-induced migrations. This brings me to another huge change ahead, the effects of climate change. While efforts to reduce emissions may mitigate the long-term impacts, some changes are already locked in for the coming decades. Rising sea levels, extreme heat waves, drought wildfires, and other extreme weather events will increasingly affect American communities. Populations may shift from coastal areas. Some regions will struggle with water scarcity, while others battle inland flooding. There will likely be broad economic costs. American cities, agriculture, and infrastructure will need to demonstrate resilience against climate change effects by 2050. Over the last 10 years, we have begun to feel the initial effects of the climate changing. Summers are hotter, forests burn faster, and for prolonged periods. Glaciers are melting, and the oceans are steadily rising.
First bought here back in 1993, did you worry about sea level rise? Was that even in your thought process?
I didn't think it would happen quite as quickly as what it did. I thought it wouldn't happen in my lifetime and let the kids worry about it, but I've had to worry about it here the last 10 years.
The ocean has become an increasingly greedy neighbor. Storms are more frequent and more fierce. Parts of these barrier islands, which look a bit like a kid trying to trace the coastline, have retreated more than 200 feet in the last 2 decades.
All of these events and more are combining to create livability issues in many regions of the country, and in particular, the southern part of the country will face the brunt of these changes before the north will. While no place is entirely immune from the impacts of climate change, it is likely that states such as California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and the other southwest states will run short on water at the same time due to the ice sheet melting in the North and South Pole. The oceans will begin to rise, which will be felt mainly along the Gulf Coast states and Florida, as well as much of the eastern seaboard. It is for this reason that as these places become harder and harder to live in, people will likely move to where are fewer issues overall. In one of these places will almost certainly be the Great Lakes region of the United States. Buffalo, New York is expected to be one of the safest cities in the contiguous United States in terms of climate change risk. And the simple fact that the Great Lakes themselves hold about 21% of all surface fresh water will mean that the region at large will be relatively safe from the expected prolonged periods of drought that will increase in frequency. So while current population estimates have most of the population moving to states such as Texas, Florida, and Georgia, that is only if current trends continue as they are today, with an outlying factor such as climate change on the horizon. Those tens of millions of immigrants and more could offer the northern states instead. Those are two huge predictions that could dramatically reshape the United States as we know it. They are also the two with the most variability. The US, for example, could clamp down on immigration, in which case the country could potentially not grow at all, or even shrink like we are starting to see in countries like Japan. Our following three predictions are far more likely to happen. Rise of automation. Another change coming by 2050 is the continuing rise of automation, artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics. Jobs that involve routine, repetitive tasks have already begun to be automated.
What's coming next?
War.
AI.
AI. Okay, let's speak about AI, so.
No, AI's jobs will disappear.
Okay. How do you feel about it? What else do you feel about it?
I don't feel anything about it. I don't need a job.
You don't think that new jobs will be created?
No.
But by 2050, whole industries could see radical changes. Autonomous vehicles may displace millions of trucks. Taxi drivers could take over many service jobs, and automated factories and warehouses will reduce the need for human labor. While high-skilled jobs will still be necessary, low-skill occupations could decline significantly, which may worsen income inequality. These automation trends will lead to huge impacts on the American workforce and economy. One example of automation is nanotechnology. Over the years, scientists have made exciting developments and discovered numerous innovative applications. Nanotechnology, as it stands, has the potential to change life. As we know, experts in the field believe that nanobots will in the future be fitted into our brains to connect us to the virtual world more readily and faster. With the use of brain-computer interface technology, the mind and computer will be making humans powerful beings with access to endless information and solutions to problems that the mind would not be able to solve. If nanotechnology reaches that stage, there may be no need for gadgets like phones and calculators. 5. High-speed rail. United States has been talking about it for a long time, but very little of it has materialized to date outside of Amtrak's to sell a service in the Northeast Corridor. Most regions barely have any form of passenger rail at all, high-speed or otherwise. But by 2050, that will change significantly. For starters, the country's most infamous high-speed rail, California High-Speed Rail, should begin full service from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 2033. An additional Phase 2 of the project is also being planned right now, which could see further connections to Sacramento and San Diego, effectively linking all major California cities by high-speed rail. Two other high-speed rail services that are pretty far along in their development are the Texas Central High-Speed Rail from Houston to Dallas and the Florida Brightline extension that will connect Miami to Orlando. Both should be complete well before 2050, and with three primary examples of high-speed rail operating within the country by 2030. This will undoubtedly lead to more projects popping up around the country by 2050. There will likely be additional high-speed passenger train services to facilitate quick rail transportation within critical regions in the Pacific Northwest, and a high-speed rail line is being looked at to connect Portland and Oregon to Vancouver, British Columbia by way of Seattle. Back in California, a high-speed rail route from Las Vegas to Los Angeles should either be complete or nearing completion. In the southeast, a route connecting Atlanta to Washington, D.C. by way of Charlotte could be fully realized, And of course, in the training capital of the country, Chicago, we could see the first ever high-speed rail hub connecting the city 82, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Cleveland, and Detroit. And due to the speed and convenience of high-speed rail, as well as other changes in land use already being implemented, the U.S. will very likely see a change in development within its cities. What other changes do you think America will experience on the road to 2050? For more financial wisdom, click the recommended video, and do not forget to like this video.